Welcome to Mogul Recaps. Today, we are recapping the entire Pirates of the Caribbean movie franchise. You can watch the video from the beginning or skip to your favorite movie with the timestamps below. Let's begin, savvy. The story is of a time when the vast ocean was not as safe as it is now, back when the seas were terrorized by law-breaking, village-looting, ransacking pirates. Among these pirates was one great captain whose name was renowned all over the world for his mischief. This is the story of that pirate. This is the story of Captain Jack Sparrow. Our story begins with a young Elizabeth Swan, the only daughter of Governor Swan, traveling the sea, heading to the British colony of Jamaica. As they travel the waters troubled by pirates and pillagers, they stumble upon a sinking ship. None of the passengers had survived except one, a young William Turner, who was dragged aboard the ship. Elizabeth tended to the boy, for she was the only one of his age, and found a strange coin bound to his head. This coin bore the pirate's crest. Fearing certain doom for the boy if the people found out, she took the coin for herself and saved him from a death sentence. 8 long years had now passed since that very fateful day, and Captain Jack Sparrow had finally set foot on the royal port in his not-so-grand ship. Jack Sparrow had arrived there in hopes to steal a ship,
Commandeer that ship,
and gather a crew to set sail in search of the Black Pearl, the most infamous and fastest boat in the entirety of the ocean. Jack's reputation, or the lack of it, however, would make it a bit difficult for him to do such a thing. On the other hand, Elizabeth was prepared in the finest gown brought directly from England in hopes that she would accept the marriage proposal of the port's captain, Norrington, who was being promoted that day. Elizabeth does not intend on marrying Norrington, but she goes to the ceremony anyway. Elizabeth and William have grown up to be great friends, and perhaps even more than that. She still wore the coin around her neck, and he still came by every now and then to her house, hoping to steal a glance. But the vows of nobility had made fate such that they could not be together. In the captain's promotion ceremony, as Norrington professed his desire to wed Elizabeth, the tight top made her lose her balance and she dropped to the sea. From across the castle, Jack saw her sinking and he jumped to her rescue. The others, however, don't seem to care that he had just saved the damsel in distress. All they care is that he was a pirate. Very unfortunate. Jack uses Elizabeth as a hostage to escape into the town and stumbles upon the smithy of William Turner, a sign that their fates were intertwined. Noble as he was, William apprehends the pirate and hands him over to the authorities. Jack Sparrow was thrown into the filthiest prison cell in the town, but no bars can ever hold Captain Sparrow for long enough. Except maybe these ones. That night, the Black Pearl sails into the shores of the port, and the pirates attack the port. They scavenge the place looking for the fabled gold coin, one of 800 pieces of the cursed Aztec gold, the same one that Elizabeth bore around her neck. Raggedy and Pintle, 2 of the Black Pearl's crewmates, bring Elizabeth aboard the ship, along with a coin bound to her neck. Elizabeth introduces herself as Elizabeth Turner, and for some reason the captain of the ship, Barbossa, is glad that she has arrived. Elizabeth bargains the coin in exchange for the pirates to leave the port alone, and so the pirates make haste. They do not, however, let the lady leave. Elizabeth is confused as to what good she would be to them after handing over the coin, but they subdue her and lock her up regardless. The next morning, when William realizes that Elizabeth was nowhere to be found, probably taken by the pirates, he demands that the newly promoted commander, Norrington, do something about it. Norrington refuses, primarily because they don't know where to start looking, and the Royal Navy certainly has not got resources to spend to look for one girl.
Jack Sparrow.
The pirates had not rescued Jack Sparrow last night. Why would Jack Sparrow be of any importance? As I said before, Will's and Jack's lives were intertwined, and so despite the earlier rebuttal from the Commodore, William frees Jack Sparrow. Jack promises that in return, he would help him find his lover. The 2 men manage to steal the fastest Royal Navy ship and head to gather a crew, a rough, strong, and hard-headed crew that could face the ocean. In a town that is as rough, strong, and hard-headed as a pirate town gets, the crew that was gathered from here was surely to be ruthless. What the hell is this? Mr. Gibbs, Jack's first mate, had managed to gather a crew, but this crew needed more than a captain to sail. They were men nonetheless.
Every man worth his salt.
Oh, and a lady as well. A crew, sort of. God save these men. A locked-up Elizabeth receives an invitation to dine with the captain of the Black Pearl that night, and as she ponders why she was still a captive, and moreover, why she was still alive, Barbossa reveals the curse of the Aztec gold. Back in the 15th century, a Spanish conquistador, Hernán Cortés, had plundered and captured hundreds of Aztec colonies and conquered them. he had gathered their wealth and their gold. Fearing Cortez's expansion, the Aztecs' heathen gods had placed a curse upon Cortez's stolen treasure. If even a single piece was taken from its rightful place, each who had plundered would suffer grave consequences. Elizabeth did not believe the captain's word, but she had something to realize.
Start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one.
The curse was real, and the ship was run by a crew that couldn't die, or live to be exact. The moonlight showed their true form, and each man, woman, and animal on that ship was actually an undead cursed for taking away the Aztec gold. Jack and his crew made their way in pursuit of the Black Pearl, and sometimes, well, most of the times, his crew doubted him and his abilities. He was always drunk, carried a broken compass, and didn't seem to be so normal in his head. Years before, Jack was a really famous pirate, and even the captain of the Black Pearl. But there was a mutiny, and he was left to die with a single pistol shot on an island in the middle of the ocean. However, Jack had somehow survived, and the pistol still carried the bullet for the one man who carried out the mutiny.
Barbosa.
The crew sails through the haunted seas where heaps of dead men and broken ships float around and finally manage to arrive at the Black Pearl's location. Jack tells his crew to follow the code if he doesn't return and heads inside the cave nearby alongside William. Inside the cave, Barbosa and his men had recaptured all the lost gold they had spent away in the past years. Every cup, coin, plate, and medallion they had taken from that place was returned. With the last piece of gold returned, Barbosa cuts open Elizabeth's arm and retrieves her blood, believing her to be the heir of a pirate, Bootstrap Bill Turner. Jack and Will watch on as the blood has no effect on the curse. They are still undead. Yep, they are definitely still undead. Jack plans to take it slow, but William is a bit hot-headed. He smacks Jack unconscious and rescues Elizabeth and makes their way back to the ship. Jack, on the other hand, is captured by his former crewmates. While William learns that it was his blood that would have lifted the curse on the pirates, Jack trades the same information for security with the Black Pearl's crew. Barbosa and his men have no intent to hold to this agreement, as Will and the rest of the pirate crew are quickly captured. Black Pearl was certainly the fastest ship on the ocean. Will turns himself over unharmed in exchange that Elizabeth, Jack, and the crew are let go. Poor choice of words. Jack and Elizabeth find themselves in the same island Jack was left in years ago. Last time, Jack had escaped, but this time he doesn't fancy any miracle like that to happen. He has a lifetime supply of rum, and luckily, a lifetime to spend, and he gets straight to it. The next day, however, he wakes up in horror as the whole island is covered in smoke. His entire lifetime supply of rum was burning away in hopes that an East India Company ship would come to rescue them. Eventually, a white sail appears near the island and they are in fact saved. I don't think Jack wanted to be saved, really. He had been mutinied off his ship twice. There's only so much a pirate can take. Not to mention his entire rum collection was gone.
Why is the rum gone?
Commodore Norrington would kill him anyway, so what was the point? No. Focus, Jack. All right, are we back to our normal drunk self? Good.
But why is the rum gone?
Jack negotiates a way to kill two birds with one stone, despite one of these birds being immortal, but that's beside the point. He negotiates a deal with Norrington that he will hand over a lot of pirates in exchange for saving Will. This would give Norrington God knows how many promotions and control over so many more ports. If there's one thing that entices a 17th century Englishman, it's colonization, and so Norrington agrees. The British Navy sail to the Cortez's treasure hold, and Jack Sparrow is given a boat to go in there and make the pirates come out unaware. The Black Pearl's crew is almost about to execute William for his blood, but Jack stops them in time and informs them that the Royal Navy was just outside waiting for them. This was exactly what he said he wouldn't do to Norrington, but they should have known better than trusting the word of a pirate. As he explains the situation, he cheekily slides one piece of the cursed gold into a sleeve. Barbosa commands his men, in the most despicable way possible, to go and beat the crap out of the Navy. After the rest of the pirates had left, Jack battles it out with Barbosa, both men being undead, as Jack stole the gold moments earlier, swings swords at each other, and even manages to stab themselves with no consequence. Kinda takes away the thrill, doesn't it? What's the point if none of them is going to die? Spoke too soon, didn't I? Will places the last gold piece drenched in his blood just as Jack fires the single bullet from his gun, and Barbosa falls to the floor dead. Outside, the pirates who were in battle with the Royal Navy find themselves alive as well, and to no one's surprise, much weakened. They are immediately captured. Elizabeth makes her way to the Black Pearl and rescues the rest of the crew, but they have no plans on saving Jack. Thankfully, they do have the courtesy enough to give her a boat to save herself. Sometime later, Jack Sparrow is being sentenced to death by hanging. He has so many crimes against the British Navy that they can't even mention all of them and just mention a few to keep the ceremony short. But this was not a day that Captain Jack Sparrow would die. Will and Elizabeth come to his rescue, and with some great sword skills by Will and some wooing by Elizabeth, Commodore Norrington decides to let Jack leave. And would you look at that? The crew came back for him, and the age of pirates continues. You see, in the world of pirates, the Black Pearl wasn't the only ship that was feared and desired by all the pirates. There were several, and one of those ships was the Flying Dutchman, a ship that was claimed to be the master of the sea. Its captain, Davy Jones, the sea himself. And yes, it wasn't as fast as the Black Pearl, but under Davy Jones's rule was a weapon feared by every sailor that ever set sail on the waters, the Kraken. Davy Jones was the king of the sea, an immortal god pirate that ruled the waters, cursed to only set foot on land once every 10 years. All of these made him the right villain, but the most important thing was that he was the one who had brought the Black Pearl from the depths of the sea and given it to Jack Sparrow 10 years ago, and the promise that he would give in return 100 souls. Jack spent 8 of those 10 years not being captain and most definitely being drunk, so this octopus dude was coming after him. Elsewhere, the Royal Port of Jamaica has a new in charge, Cutler Beckett.
His lord now, actually.
His first order of decree is to hand Elizabeth Swan, William Turner, and James Norrington a death sentence for letting Jack Sparrow escape. This man has a personal grudge, I assure. He didn't even let the two get married. Jack, on the other hand, knows that Davy Jones would soon arrive, for it had been 10 years, and he manages to retrieve something important. It's a picture of a key. It opens something. I'm not sure even Jack is pretty sure about it. His compass, which is supposed to point to what he wants the most, doesn't seem to give him any directions. Jack seems lost. To top it off, he is visited by Bootstrap Bill, who had been handed to serve in the Dutchman by Barbossa and his men. He comes to warn him that Davy Jones is coming for the debt that he owes, and marks Jack on his hand. Back at the Jamaican port, Lord Beckett comes up with a proposal. He tells William that he will give him and his bride-to-be the royal pardon if he manages to bring Jack Sparrow's compass. He wishes to find something that will help him conquer the sea. And so, William sets out to find his friend, traveling to as many ports as he can in search of the Black Pearl. Until one day, he finds it laying ashore on a lonely island. As he searches the island for the pirate, he is caught in a trap of the local cannibals and is taken to their camp as prisoner. The tribesmen take him to their leader, who is none other than Jack himself. William is confused. Jack is confused too. But as he commands the men to take away the prisoner, he whispers in Will's ears, "Save me!" William is thrown into a cell hanging from a cliff alongside Gibbs and some of the other crewmates. They tell him that Jack was going to be eaten after the cannibals had finished their ceremony. The guys quickly maneuver their way out of the prison. Half of them have to die, though. Don't worry, they were trying to kill the other half anyway. Jack manages to take the opportunity, while the tribesmen are busy chasing the prisoners, to run away himself. He does encounter a few obstacles here and there, like these two super badass women, but he manages to escape. Not in a good, not getting hurt way, but he escapes nonetheless. Meanwhile, Ragetti and Pintle had managed to escape the Royal Navy's prison and stumble upon the Black Pearl just laying on the sea. They thank their lucky stars and start getting the ship ready just in time for the rest of the crew to come join. Jack is still fearful to travel the oceans, and so they travel upriver to the famous witch, Tia Dalma. She was the one who had given him the magical compass, and so Jack Sparrow regarded her with great respect, or maybe fear, or perhaps both. Her cottage is filled with anonymous and creepy stuff. There's a dead body lying around casually, but the pirates don't care. They have seen worse. Tia Dalma tells Jack that he was in danger in the sea, and he must be near land, and hands him a jar of dirt to carry around. Wonder if this is the jar of cocaine Amber Heard was talking about. Jack is worried that his compass won't work, but it's not the compass that's working. It's Jack being unsure of what he wants. Tia Dalma tells him about the chest they were looking for. Long ago, Davy Jones was charged with taking the dead souls to their salvation. He was in love with a woman whom he could only meet once every 10 years. Davy Jones grew tired of these feelings, or perhaps felt betrayed. He carved out his heart and put it into the chest.
He couldn't literally put his heart in the chest.
Oh, but he did. He locked it away and hid it from the world. The key opened that chest. Davy Jones kept it with him at all times. The one who had the chest could control Davy Jones and ultimately the sea. After leaving Tia Dalma's place, William and Jack decide that it's best to take the fight to Davy Jones himself. Jack tells William to go into the ship and steal the key, and they could acquire the chest together and leverage that to free Elizabeth and, well, have a grand old life. Will goes to Davy Jones' ship and is almost immediately captured. Davy Jones almost instantly realizes that Sparrow is around, travels to him, and gives him a 3-day ultimatum to get the 99 souls left in the bargain.
I keep the boy 99 souls.
With nowhere left to go searching for souls, Jack heads to Tortuga. Back in the Jamaican port, Governor Swan manages to free his daughter, who goes straight to Lord Beckett. I swear, Jack is the most drunk in the movie, but he doesn't do half the stupid stuff that the other characters end up doing. She too makes a deal with the Lord in exchange for her and her fiancé's life to bring him Jack Sparrow and his compass. She too heads straight to Tortuga, the one place he would surely be. William reunites with his pirate father Bootstrap Bill, or William Turner, as his name was before he became all starfishy like he was now. Bill tells him that the Dutchman must always have a captain. It didn't matter who he was. The ship must always sail. He had no idea where the key was, though. No one did, and so Will came up with a plan. He challenges Davy Jones to a match of dice, wagering an eternity of servitude against the key. Davy Jones, after who knows how long, reveals the fabled key from under his tentacle beard. The game, however, is in his favor, and he almost wins William's life, but his father stops this from happening by wagering his own life instead. In Tortuga, the crew had managed to acquire,
including those 4, that gives us 4.
Norrington, who had now been stripped of his titles and all of his wealth, along with Elizabeth, also managed to get into Jack's crew. Jack was still unsure of himself, but he knew one thing for sure. Elizabeth wanted to save William, so he used her to get the compass to work and find themselves the dead man's chest. William, on the other hand, with the help of his father, manages to steal the keys from under Davy Jones's tentacles, replacing with the key's drawing. He leaves the ship promising his father that he would rescue him one day. Unfortunately for him, the ship he decides to escape on cannot escape the Dutchman, thanks to the Kraken, of course. So William does a Uno reverse and hides under the Dutchman itself after escaping the Kraken. Now that the key was lost, Davy Jones tells his men to make haste to the island where he had buried the chest. Elizabeth, Norrington, and Jack arrive at the island, and William too somehow gets there before the Dutchman. Won't argue the logic. They find the chest, and, well, they fight for the chest. William wants it to gain leverage over Jones to free his father. Norrington wants it to regain his reputation, and Jack wants it to pay off his debt. They battle it out, swords striking each other throughout the island, swirling and whirling around the windmill, with Jack winning the duel or perhaps escaping from it. He opens the chest and finds the fabled heart, the same one that could make him rule the oceans. For now, however, he just wants the debt cleared. Jack hides the heart in his jar of dirt and is busy battling the crew sent over by Davy Jones, since he himself can't step onto land for some more time now. His crew does his bidding. Norrington notices something odd about the dirt jar and puts 2 and 2 together. He steals the heart and runs away with the chest, giving the others a chance to escape. The Black Pearl then faces the Flying Dutchman, and Jack is pretty confident about the whole thing because he's got a jar of dirt.
I got a jar of dirt, I got a jar of dirt, and guess what's inside it?
When the jar breaks, however, panic ensues and the Pearl is forced to run from the Dutchman, which it does pretty easily. Until, well, the Kraken appears. The first attack of the Kraken is somehow managed by the crew, but the Kraken wasn't done with them. They knew it would be back. Jack orders everyone to abandon ship, but Elizabeth, having realized that the Kraken is only after Jack and not the ship or crew, chains him to the mast to ensure everyone else's escape. As the others row away, the Kraken rises up behind Jack. In a final act of defiance, Jack launches himself into the Kraken's maw, and the monster takes the Pearl down into the depths, back where it had once been. Davy Jones chuckles at the death of the man, but his joy is short-lived. The chest his men had managed to bring back was empty. His heart was delivered to Lord Beckett of the East India Company by none other than James Norrington. The crew of the Black Pearl, along with Will and Elizabeth, go to Tia Dalma. They feel pretty bad for having given up on Jack. A lot of the crew even missed their captain. But there was nothing that could be done. Or was there? To get to Jack Sparrow, the crew must now undertake the most dangerous journey ever, to the ends of the earth and beyond, and for that, they needed a captain. Someone who had seen these waters and come back. Captain Barbossa. Tia Dalma had brought him back from the dead, and he would lead them to the dead. Doesn't get any more poetic than this. Long ago, like a really, really long ago, a group of pirates had first established a court where the code of the pirates was written. They had crowned 9 pirate lords who governed the piracy of the seas. Their gathering was called the Brethren Court, and their first ever gathering had made the decision to bind the sea goddess Calypso in human form. A decision that had made man the ruler of the seas. That man now was Lord Cutler Beckett. With Davy Jones now under his command, Lord Beckett starts destroying every pirate ship in the Caribbean seas to increase the influence of the East India Company. Back at the Jamaican port, he executes anyone, including women and children, suspected of or remotely associated with piracy. He even orders Jones to kill the Kraken and rid the sea of the monster. Condemned prisoners sing a song to summon the 9 pirate lords comprising the Brethren Court to convene at Shipwreck's Cove and take action against Beckett. Elsewhere, Sao Fang, pirate lord of the South China Sea and residing in Singapore, possesses a map to World's End, the gateway to Davy Jones's locker, where Jack is eternally imprisoned. Elizabeth and Barbossa bargain with Fang for the map and a ship, when suddenly they are attacked by the Royal Navy men. During the ensuing chaos, Will strikes a bargain with Fang for the Black Pearl in exchange for Sparrow, who Fang wants to turn over to Beckett, presumably for immunity from Davy Jones's attacks on pirates. Will wants the Black Pearl to rescue his father from the Flying Dutchman. The both of them have a deal. But remember, we can never trust a pirate's word, so one of these men is getting betrayed. With the map and the ship and a few more added crewmen courtesy of Sao, they travel through the frozen waters until they are lost in the sea. For to find something that doesn't exist, they must look somewhere they don't know exists. This leads them to an erroneous waterfall dropped straight to Davy Jones's locker, where Jack is presumably stuck. Sparrow, trapped aboard the Pearl, constantly hallucinates about an entire crew comprising himself, each representing a different facet of his character. Some are gruesome, some are silly, and some are hardworking, but all of them are drunk. Tia Dalma uses her powers once again to send help of 1,000,000 crabs, which carry the Pearl back to the shore where Jack reunites with his crew. He's a bit sad though. Everyone had come there for their own selfish reasons, and besides, 4 of the people there had tried to kill him.
Don't tell me you didn't enjoy it.
Regardless of their differences, they have to travel together, and so they do. They travel through the dead waters and pass by several hundreds of spirits. Tia claims that Davy Jones was supposed to care for these souls and give them passage to the afterlife, but he had neglected his duties and become a monster. Among these souls, Elizabeth sees her father, Governor Swan's soul, pass by in a boat, murdered by Cutler Beckett after Swan became suspicious about the heart. Swan reveals that whoever stabs Jones's heart becomes the Flying Dutchman's immortal captain. Elizabeth calls for her father to return to her, but he cannot return no matter how much she wails. He wishes her well and tells her that he was so proud of what she had become. Elizabeth is honestly a very strong female character. Back to the story. The crew travels several days unable to decipher the clue in the map. It tells them to go under when the sun sets when the green light arrives. But the thing is that the green light arrives at sunrise. Jack unintentionally deciphers a clue on the map, realizing the ship must be capsized to return to the living world. The ship is overturned at sunset and upturns back into the living world as the sun rises. A green flash marks their return. Upon returning back to the real world, they are immediately captured by Sao Fang, who reveals his secret arrangement with Will. However, he betrays Will, having made another deal with Cutler Beckett to hand over the crew and keep the Black Pearl. Told you one of these guys was getting betrayed. Oh wait, looks like he is getting betrayed too. Just goes to show the East India Company are as untrustworthy as the pirates. You could ask 18th century India if you want to. Jack is once again handed to the East India Company, and he manufactures a deal with Beckett. He is one of the pirate lords, so he would be able to have access to the upcoming court meeting. He proposes to lead Beckett to where the pirates will convene and lure them out for Beckett to destroy, in exchange for Beckett protecting him from Jones. When Fang is double-crossed by Beckett, Fang bargains with Barbossa to release the Pearl in exchange for Elizabeth, who he believes is Calypso, trapped in human form, while in fact, it was Tia Dalma, who was the Calypso. But never mind, Fang escapes with Elizabeth on his ship, while Barbossa and his men take control of the Pearl again. While escaping, Sao Fang attacks the Royal Navy, also allowing Jack to make a clumsy escape. This time, Cutler wants to finish everyone off at once, so he sends the Dutchman after Sao Fang, while he follows Jack and the Pearl to the Brethren Court. Aboard his warship, the Empress, Fang tells Elizabeth that the First Brethren Court trapped Calypso into human form so men could rule the seas. He wishes that he could have that power for himself and try some hanky-panky stuff. But his ship is attacked by the Dutchman, leaving him mortally injured. With his dying breath, he names Elizabeth as the new captain and the pirate lord of the South China Sea. She is taken captive by the Dutchman, but is freed by Norrington, who was now an admiral, making sure everything went in order for the Dutchman. They escape to their ship, although Norrington is killed by Will's father, Bootstrap Bill, who had now lost his mind after pledging an eternity to the ship, after discovering Norrington aiding Elizabeth and her crew's escape. At night, Jack gives Will his compass and tells him to help Beckett find the Brethren Court with the compass. Will manages to find his way to the Navy ship. He can't help but laugh at what great limits the infamous Davy Jones was being mistreated by these men. He also realizes that it was Calypso who was his lover and whom he had betrayed. He had taught the First Brethren Court how to bind the goddess, because he thought she had betrayed his love. At Shipwreck Island, the 9 pirate lords introduce themselves and present the 9 pieces of 8. Ahmad of the Black Sea, Barbossa of the Caspian Sea, Shabale of the Mediterranean Sea, Ching of the Pacific, Jack Sparrow of the Caribbean, Samhaji of the Indian Ocean, Elizabeth of the South China Sea, and Eduardo of the Adriatic Sea. Each of the lords have their own opinions about the feeling of Calypso, and none wants to go to war. The debate would be an endless, colossal mess. Barbossa calls upon Captain Teague Sparrow, keeper of the pirates' codex, and Jack's father, to confirm that only a pirate king can declare war, and so a vote is carried out to elect a king, with each lord voting for themselves except for Jack, who votes Elizabeth the king of the court. Her first order? The pirates will go to war against Beckett. The Royal Armada is a bit too overwhelming, however, isn't it?
Parlay?
Parlay it is. During the parley with Beckett and Jones, Elizabeth swaps Sparrow for Will. With Jack willingly surrendering himself, Barbossa is angered and snatches away his piece of the 8. Barbossa tricks the other pirate lords into yielding their piece of the 8 rank insignias, which he needs to free Calypso, who is bound in human form as Tia Dalma. Calypso had planned to incur her wrath upon the pirates who had trapped her in human form. But before she could be released, Will tells her that it was her own lover, Davy Jones, who had betrayed her. Her fury unleashes a violent maelstrom just as the Navy's massive fleet appears on the horizon. During the battle, Sparrow escapes the Flying Dutchman's brig and steals the dead man's chest. Meanwhile, Davy Jones kills the Navy men and obtains the key to the chest, which Jack then steals from Jones during a duel. The Black Pearl and the Flying Dutchman face off near the center of the massive maelstrom. Will proposes to Elizabeth, and Captain Barbossa marries them in the midst of the battle. Seriously, there is so much happening that I can't even keep up. Will boards the Flying Dutchman to retrieve the chest, but is mortally wounded by Davy Jones. As Bootstrap Bill attacks Jones, Sparrow, who wanted the heart for his own immortality, places his broken saber in Will's hand and helps him stab Jones's heart, killing Jones. Jack and Elizabeth escape the Flying Dutchman as their crew carve out the dead Will's heart and places it into the dead man's chest. The ship disappears into the whirlpool. Beckett, never intending to honor his agreement with Jack, moves to attack the Black Pearl. The Dutchman suddenly resurfaces from the depths, with Will as the captain and the crewmen now human. Will and Sparrow aim the Flying Dutchman and the Black Pearl at the Endeavor, destroying it and killing Beckett. The Royal Armada retreats in disarray. Although Will has been saved and the Dutchman crew has regained their humanity, he is bound to sail the sea as the Dutchman's captain. Will and Elizabeth have one day together where they consummate their marriage on an island. Will departs at sunset, but first gives Elizabeth the dead man's chest for safekeeping. Shortly after, Barbossa again commandeers the Black Pearl, stranding Jack and Gibbs in Tortuga. Having anticipated Barbossa's deception, however, Sparrow has already removed the map's middle that leads to the Fountain of Youth. For the greatest of treasures is always immortality, although it can also be the greatest of curses. Regardless, our pirate's adventure continues. For years, people had searched for immortality. They had carried out experiments, taken dangerous journeys, and even betrayed their own kin for a boon that doesn't even exist. Or perhaps it just hadn't been discovered yet. Captain Jack Sparrow travels to London to locate the person who has been impersonating him. The imposter has reportedly been recruiting a crew to search for the legendary Fountain of Youth. First, Sparrow rescues his former first mate, Gibbs, who is about to be hanged. Though the two are captured, Jack is brought before King George II, who wants him to guide an expedition to the fountain before the Spanish find it. Heading the expedition is Jack's old nemesis, Captain Hector Barbossa, now a privateer in service to the British Navy after having lost Jack's ship, the Black Pearl, as well as his leg. Jack escapes and is found by his father, Captain Teague, who warns Jack about the fountain's tests. Jack soon discovers that the imposter is Angelica, his former lover and daughter of the ruthless pirate Blackbeard, who possesses supernatural powers and practices voodoo magic. Jack is forced to join Blackbeard's crew and to lead them to the fountain. Meanwhile, Gibbs, who memorized, then destroyed Sparrow's map, barters with Barbossa to lead him and his crew to the fountain. Aboard Blackbeard's ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, Jack learns that the fountain's water must be drunk simultaneously from 2 silver chalices, once belonging to Juan Ponce de Leon. The person drinking from the chalice containing the mermaid's tear has their life extended, while the other person dies, their years of life drained from their body. Blackbeard intends to use the fountain's power to circumvent his fatal encounter with a one-legged man, and sets a course for Whitecap Bay. There, he traps a mermaid that Philip Swift, a captive missionary, falls in love with and names Sirena. Blackbeard then sends Sparrow to retrieve the chalices from the De Leon's grounded ship. Sparrow arrives finding only Barbossa. The Spanish have already taken the chalices. Barbossa only wants revenge against Blackbeard for having captured the Black Pearl, forcing Barbossa to amputate his own leg to escape. He and Jack plot to defeat Blackbeard, then steal the chalices from the nearby Spanish camp. Meanwhile, Sirena, who returns Philip's love, is tricked into shedding a tear, which Blackbeard collects, then leaves her to die while forcing Philip to go with him. Sparrow returns with the chalices and Gibbs, who he had reunited with while helping Barbossa. Jack negotiates with Blackbeard to return his confiscated magical compass and to free Gibbs in exchange for the chalices and his leading them to the fountain. Blackbeard agrees, and Gibbs departs with Jack's compass. At the fountain, Blackbeard and his crew are attacked by Barbossa and also the Spanish, sent by their king to destroy the fountain, believing its power is an abomination against God. After an intense battle, Barbossa stabs Blackbeard with a poison-laced sword, but Angelica is also wounded by it. Barbossa claims Blackbeard's magical sword and, assuming command, leaves with Blackbeard's crew. Philip, mortally wounded, escapes and returns to free Sirena. After finding the chalices that the Spanish tossed into the deep water, Sirena gives them to Sparrow, then retrieves the dying Philip, taking him underwater to heal him. Angelica intends to sacrifice herself for her father, but Sparrow deceives them, and Angelica unknowingly drinks from the chalice containing Sirena's tear, thus killing Blackbeard and saving her. Although they declare their love, Jack, knowing she may avenge her father's death, strands her on an island, intending for a passing ship to pick her up. Jack then finds Gibbs, who used Sparrow's compass to locate the Revenge and retrieve all the captured ships that Blackbeard had magically shrunk and bottled, including the Black Pearl. The two head off, hoping to find a way to return the pearl to its original size. Like every curse that must come to an end, at some time every franchise must come to an end as well. And this one came to an end with this story, because this will be the final pirate movie that Depp will ever play. Disney did take a massive L for not waiting to see who the real culprit was. But now the work is done. The franchise is dead. And dead men tell no tales. Several years since the incident of Davy Jones's death, a young Henry Turner leaves his home in the dark of night to take a rowboat out to the middle of the ocean. He finds himself pulled down to the bottom of the sea and inside the cursed ghost ship, the Flying Dutchman. Henry finds his father, William Turner, still cursed as captain of the Dutchman. Henry wants to break his father's curse using the fabled Trident of Poseidon, and he thinks he can get it with the help of Captain Jack Sparrow. But Will thinks it's a lost cause and urges his son to stop his quest. He sends Henry back up to his boat. 9 years later, Henry is a member aboard a British Royal Navy ship, the Monarch. He realizes that the ship is headed toward the Devil's Triangle, a dangerous place in the Atlantic Ocean where ships are not meant to sail. Henry rushes to warn the captain of their course, but is charged with insubordination and is locked up in the ship's brig. Sure enough, the warship passes through the rocky walls that lead into the Devil's Triangle. They are soon attacked by the undead pirates of the Silent Mary. The ghost pirates slay the soldiers one by one. Boarding the warship is Captain Armando Salazar. He makes his way down to the brig and sees a wanted poster for Jack Sparrow. Salazar finds Henry's cell and orders the boy to send a message to Jack that Salazar will be coming for him. On the island of St. Martin, a young woman named Karina Smith is locked up in a cell after being accused of witchcraft. In reality, she is just very knowledgeable in astronomy and horology. While speaking to a guard, she manages to pick her lock and escape. Meanwhile, on the island, Jack has broken into a bank vault and is found sleeping in it. His crew hooks up the whole bank to a bunch of horses and has them pull it through the streets. They make it back to Jack's new ship, the Dying Gull, which is strapped to a small shack by the shore. When the crew brings the vault onto the ship, they find the whole thing empty, save for a single coin, which Jack nabs for himself naturally. The crew has become frustrated with how Jack has been leading them. Even Mr. Gibbs has lost faith in old Jack. They all turn their backs on him and leave him alone. Henry is still a prisoner of the British Royal Navy and is now set to be executed for treason. But he is surprised to find Karina having disguised herself to find Henry personally. She wants to help Henry find the Trident of Poseidon and can do so with the help of a diary she has in her possession that has a map to the Trident. And the map only came into view during a blood moon with the help of a red jewel that she has been carrying. Jack goes to trade his magic compass, the one that points the holder to what they desire, for, what else? A bottle of rum. Once the transaction is made, it causes Salazar and his crew to be released from the Devil's Triangle, allowing them to roam the seas and seek out Jack. Karina helps Henry escape, but she and Jack end up captured. While in this cell, Jack meets Henry and learns he is the son of the late Will Turner. Henry turns out to be disappointed when he finds Jack, seeing him as a disgraced drunk locked up in a cell. He tells Jack how he plans to break his father's curse. Jack and Karina are brought to the gallows for their execution. On the way to the noose, Jack stops by a cell and finds his Uncle Jack, who has seen better days, but is still content in his pirate life. Before Jack and Karina's sentences are carried out, Henry rounds up Jack's crew to help them free, even though it's only because Henry is paying them to save Jack. The pirates fight the guards and the executioner, with Karina nearly getting hung until Henry catches her. Everyone makes their way to the Dying Gull, and they manage to release it from its holdings. Somewhere else across the ocean, Captain Hector Barbosa is enjoying his time as the captain of the Queen Anne's Revenge after taking it from Captain Blackbeard, with his new crew helping him reap in much rewards. However, Barbosa learns that Salazar is out there. He meets with a sea witch, Shansa, who has come into possession of the compass, which she hands to Barbosa. Soon, Salazar and his crew find the Queen Anne's Revenge, and Salazar meets with Barbosa after learning he has the compass. He wants him to help catch Jack. Salazar explains his fight with Jack. Many years earlier, Salazar was a powerful captain in the Spanish Navy who went about the seas with his men slaying every pirate they came across. They came across a young Jack, still just a crew member aboard his ship. As Salazar and his crew laid waste to Jack's crew, the young lad would quickly come into possession of the compass from one of his dying comrades. With his quick thinking, Jack tricked Salazar into sailing his ship into the Devil's Triangle. Salazar's ship and his men were destroyed, but the power of the Devil's Triangle brought them back to life as ghosts. Jack had then become captain of his ship. Now Salazar wants to find the Trident to kill Jack and every last pirate out there. Barbosa agrees to help find Jack. Aboard the Gull, Jack observes the growing attraction between Henry and Karina. Salazar has his sights set on Jack, leading Jack to tell Gibbs and the rest of the crew that they are dealing with the dead. Jack, Karina, and Henry board a rowboat while the others stay and fight. Karina hops off the boat and swims to the nearby island. Before Henry can go ahead and do the same, Salazar has reanimated dead sharks and sends them after Jack and his crew. Jack and Henry try to evade the sharks, and they manage to hook onto one and use it to ride their boat to the shore. Salazar and his men run after them, but they are unable to touch land without burning up in the sun. Salazar vows to wait for Jack as he and Henry head into the island. During their walk on the island, Jack is found by an old pirate comrade who claims is owed a favor from Jack. He forces Jack to wed his widowed sister and adopt their 2 children. Before anyone can be made official, Barbosa shows up and unintentionally saves Jack. However, he still needs something from Jack. He wants to get the Black Pearl out of the bottle Jack had been carrying all along so that it can once again be free to sail the seas. Jack breaks the pearl out of its bottle and has Barbosa push it into the water as it grows back to its enormous size. On the way to the Trident, Barbosa has Jack tied to the mast. He goes to talk to Karina as she looks up at the stars. Barbosa suggests that Karina's father was a thief, and she slaps him in response. She tells Barbosa how she was named after a star. After seeing the design in her diary, Barbossa figures her name is Karina. He goes back to Jack, and they both realize that Karina is Barbossa's daughter. He explains to Jack that he gave up a child for adoption a long time ago, and figures this must be her. Barbossa doesn't want anyone else to know, and he threatens to cut out Jack's tongue if he breathes a word. Eventually, the Pearl reaches the island containing the trident. Karina sees the points on the island matching the design of the star's alignment. With the red jewel, she manages to uncover the trident's location. The sea splits in two and reveals the trident to be located at the bottom of the sea. Just as the crew approaches the trident, Salazar and his crew find them as well. The pirates all engage in battle, with Salazar going after Jack. Salazar grabs the trident and tries to kill Jack with it. Henry and Karina realize that destroying the trident breaks every curse on the sea. With the trident pinned against Jack, Henry runs up and breaks the trident. Salazar and his men return to the normal state. Gibbs and the others drop the anchor for Jack, Henry, Karina, and Barbossa to get back up. But Salazar, not willing to rest until Jack is dead, follows after them with some of his men. As they reach the top, the sea starts coming together. Barbossa descends the anchor and faces Karina. He reveals a tattoo on his arm of the stars, and Karina soon realizes what it means. She asks him what she is to him. Barbossa responds, "Treasure." He drops with his sword and hits Salazar, sending the captain and his men to their, now permanent, deaths, at the cost of Barbossa's own life. Once the other three make it back to the ship, the crew mourns Barbossa. Henry and Karina are standing on a hill. They give in to their attraction and they kiss. Henry looks through a telescope and sees the Flying Dutchman's surface. Will walks to the shore, now a free man at last. He approaches Henry and sees his necklace. Knowing it belongs to his son, Will embraces Henry, who promises to tell him the story of how he freed him. They are soon partied by Elizabeth, who runs up to Will and kisses him. Jack is once again captain of the Black Pearl, and the crew is ready to follow him once again. They set sail on their next adventure. Later, Will is sleeping in bed with Elizabeth. The door opens and a shadowy figure slowly walks in. We then see the claw of Davy Jones. Will wakes up startled. He holds Elizabeth close, thinking it was a nightmare. He is unaware that there is a trace of Jones on the floor beneath them. Tell us in the comments below, what do you think about Johnny Depp leaving the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise? Also, be sure to like and subscribe for more recap videos. See you next time.